Hi, this is Ryan. I found two things this week that can't be true, and yet, thing one, a pair of curtains 98 inches long sitting at IKEA right now for $9.99. Thing two, designers keep pointing at the $60 pair hanging in most American living rooms and calling it one of the things that makes the whole space read cheap. Same window, same house. The $10 ones win. So I spent 2 days inside designer interviews, retail listings, and sizing guides and pulled out 10 specific objects that are in your home tonight. Objects working professionals name on the record as the stuff that screams broke. Not old, not broken, cheap. And here's what got me. Almost none of them are the expensive things you guess. One of them costs $3.23 to fix, but there's one item on this list where keeping it costs more than replacing 4 of the others put together. Not replacing it, keeping it. And I still can't get over which one it is. If you'd rather find this stuff out from me than from a guy trying to sell you a sofa, subscribe, because the person who is trying to sell you a sofa has never once told you the thing that a designer named Tina Delia said out loud this summer. Her line was this: a space looks inexpensive not because the individual pieces are inexpensive, but because the room lacks intention. Read that again, it's the whole game. And it means the premise most of us walk around with is backwards. We assume the expensive-looking home is the one with expensive stuff in it. Deli is saying no, the cheap-looking room and the expensive-looking room can contain the exact same objects, bought at the exact same store on the exact same budget. What separates them is whether anybody measured anything. Now, quick honesty break, because I'd rather do this at minute 2 than have you catch me at minute 20. Not one designer in any of this said these items mean you're broke. Nobody's reading your bank account off your coffee table. What they said over and over in different words is that these things make a room read cheap. That's a statement about a space, not you. I'm keeping that distinction all the way through, because the second I blur it, I'm just another guy on the internet insulting your house to sell you a lamp. But here's why it still matters more than a taste argument. Taste you can ignore. This list has numbers attached. That's the part that got me digging. I went looking for opinions and I kept finding measurements, inches, Kelvin, thresholds printed on the side of a box. 6 of the 10 things on this list aren't matters of style at all. They're pass-fail. You can walk around your own house tonight with a tape measure and grade yourself. So let's start with the one that fails in more American living rooms than anything else, and it's sitting under your feet: the rug. A Philadelphia designer, Michelle Gage, put it in about 8 words. Rugs that are too small for the room cheapen the space. Fine, that's an opinion. But then you go looking for what too small actually means, and it turns out the industry has been publishing the answer for years, and it's the same answer everywhere I checked. Lulu & George's styling guide says it. 3 separate retailers' sizing guides say it. Here it is. The rug has to be big enough that at least the front legs of your sofa and chairs are sitting on it. Front legs on. That's the standard. For most living rooms, that's an 8 by 10 or a 9 by 12. And an 8 by 10 is not a vague thing. It's 96 inches by 120 inches. Go measure a wall in your head right now and feel how big that actually is. Most people are genuinely surprised. You're also supposed to leave somewhere between 18 and 24 inches of bare floor between the rug's edge and each wall, and the rug should run at least 6 to 8 inches past the ends of your sofa. Here's the failure mode, described by a designer better than I can. When the rug sits too far from the sofa, a gap opens up between the furniture and the rug edge, and that gap reads as 2 separate zones instead of one room. A rug that only fits under the coffee table disconnects the seating entirely. That's it. That's the crime. Your sofa is standing on the floor and your rug is off doing its own thing in the middle of the room like a raft nobody boarded. And nobody buys a small rug on purpose. You buy it because you looked at all that empty floor and sized to that, instead of sizing to the furniture and the humans, which, by the way, has a free fix that costs nothing. Painter's tape. Lay out the exact dimensions on your floor first and live with it for a day. Remember the tape or coming back to it. And this is the moment the whole thing flipped for me. I started this expecting a taste fight. My style versus your style, nobody wins. That's not what this is. Front legs on the rug, 96 by 120, 18 inches of floor. These are pass-fail, and most of America is quietly failing them for one reason. Nobody ever said the number out loud. Which brings us to the windows. And the windows are worse because at least with the rug, you have to buy something. With the curtains, half the time, you already own the fix. Here's the standard American situation. Ready-made curtain panels in this country come in fixed lengths: 63, 84, 96, 108, 120 inches. 84 is the one that's everywhere. It's the default. It's what you grab. And according to a drapery guide I went through in detail, 84-inch panels in a room with 9-foot ceilings typically will not reach the floor. They hover, they float an inch or two above the ground. And that floating is the specific thing designers tell you never to do. 96 or 108 is the correct call, depending on where the rod goes, but the length isn't even the real error. The rod is. The instinct almost everybody follows, mount the rod just above the window frame where it looks like it belongs, is the exact instinct that makes rooms feel smaller and windows look shorter than they are. Same guide, same page. The minimum is 4 to 6 inches above the frame. The good answer in most rooms is 2 to 4 inches below the ceiling line. And then the finish, about a ½ inch break on the floor for a crisp line. 2 or 3 inches of float if you want it casual. That's from Crate & Barrel's own hanging guide, which is a fun place to find it given they'd rather sell you the expensive panel. So what does the correct version cost? IKEA in the US right now has a 98-inch curtain pair, Ginstmott, at $9.99, sitting at 4.5 stars across 212 reviews. The step up die tag is $14.99, 4.1 stars across 495. $10 for the single most repeated "your house looks cheap" mistake in the entire category. Actually, wait, let me be fair because I don't want to send you shopping for no reason. If you already own 84-inch panels, there's a version of this fix that costs $0, and I'll get to it.
Because right now, there's a bigger problem waiting, and it's the one thing on this list that's already in your house, already switched on and quietly changing how every single object I've just described actually looks to your eyes. You cannot fix your rug or your curtains until you fix this, and it costs $3.23. There's a number printed on the side of every light bulb box in America. It's usually a 2-digit number, and almost nobody in this country has ever looked at it. It's called CRI, Color Rendering Index. Feet Electric's own technical guide explains it plainly. It measures how accurately colors show up under that light compared to natural sunlight on a scale of 0 to 100. 90 or above is considered excellent. Here's why that's not a trivia fact. Every single thing in your living room, your sofa fabric, your wood floor, your paint, your skin, is not a color. It's a color being rendered by whatever bulb is in the ceiling. Change the bulb, change every object in the room. That's not a metaphor. That's just how light works. And below 90, according to an independent LED buying guide from June, the deficit is visible to the naked eye in any room with multiple color surfaces, which is every room. That's what a room is. So you can buy the right rug, hang the curtains at the ceiling, do everything correctly, and then run it all through a bulb that's rendering your walnut table as gray-brown mud, and you'll never know why the photos look worse than the room felt. Then there's the second half of the bulb problem, and this one has an actual designer's fingerprint on it. A designer named Juliana Custers, talking to Living Etc. back in January, listed the things that read as a cheap developer build, and she put cool white lighting right there in the lineup next to blank white walls. Her word for it was indecision, and the technical layer underneath her opinion lines up exactly. 2700 Kelvin is the warm, incandescent style light. It's the reference for bedrooms and living rooms. 5000 Kelvin, the daylight bulb, the one that looks brightest and most efficient on the shelf, is described by the manufacturer guides as the clean daylight white for garages, utility rooms, and workshops, spaces where visibility matters more than atmosphere. So the mistake isn't buying a bad bulb, it's putting the workshop light in the living room and then wondering why the room feels like a rental car interior at 9 at night. Fixed cost, Home Depot, right now, Philips Ultra Definition, 60-watt equivalent, 2700 Kelvin, IRI 95, $12.90 for 4 bulbs, $3.23 a bulb, $3.23 to change how every color in your house reads. Now, Steelman time, because I'm about to be less kind and I'd rather earn it. That Philips bulb has a real problem, and it's sitting in its own review page.
4.3 stars across 250 reviews sounds fine until you notice only 45% of reviewers actually recommend it, and the negatives all describe the same failure: flicker, then a permanent half brightness. One owner documented 7 of 16 bulbs going down in about 9 months. Another had 2 separate boxes fail between May of 2025 and February of 2026. Philips honored the warranty both times, 3 years, but you're keeping the receipt. That's the honest version. Great light, mediocre lifespan, warranty that works if you're organized. In the ceiling fixture that bulb screws into, same story with a naskier tail. The Hampton Bay Clifton 13-inch flush mount, the standard swap for the builder-grade dome light in every rental hallway in America, is $34.97. 90 CRI built-in, 1,300 lumens, 4.5 stars across 583 reviews, 64% recommend. But the LED is integrated, not a bulb, a plate. When it dies, the whole fixture is trash, and owners are reporting the flicker starting at 1 to 2 years. One guy watching them go down one by one across a house he'd furnished with them. Another review just flatly called it a fixture you can't put a bulb in. So that's the trade. $35 buys you the fix and the disposability at the same time. Okay, now the one I couldn't get over, the vertical blinds.
Fair case first, and there is one. A blinds retailer, and yes, they sell blinds, weigh that, makes the argument that modern vertical treatments are still balanced and genuinely practical for a wide window or a patio slider. And for a big sliding door on a tight budget, that's not a crazy position. Nothing else cheap covers that opening as easily. But here's what the design side says, and it's specific rather than snobby. A Home Edit window survey from May put it as, verticals flatten the wall and cut the incoming light into harsh lines. Then House Digest, quoting working designers, added the mechanical tell: if they clatter when you touch them, they read dated. And 1 or 2 veins falling out leaves gaps you can never quite fix. You know that sound. That's the sound. So most people do the reasonable thing. They don't replace them, they repair them. And that's where I found the number that stopped me cold. A 10-pack of replacement vanes at Walmart is $24.98. A custom replacement headrail that Track It All hangs from runs $77.50 to $152. Added up, you can spend $176 restoring the exact item the entire design world is throwing away. And the 4 biggest fixes on this whole list, the curtains, the bulbs, the rug, the ceiling fixture, come to about $120. Keeping it costs more than fixing everything else. That's the sentence. I checked it 3 times because I didn't believe it either. And it's not just the money. That headrail is the lock-in. Once it's screwed into the wall, every future decision routes through it. You don't rethink the window, you just order more vanes. That's how a temporary fix becomes a decade. The replacement tiers, for what it's worth, under $100 a window gets you shears or a basic roller. $100 to $300 gets you custom rollers, panel tracks, entry-level cellular shades. That's from a blinds retailer too, so treat it as a map and not gospel, but the map says the exit is cheaper than the maintenance.
Which leaves 5 items I haven't touched. The plastic frames pretending to be metal, the plastic laundry basket you stopped seeing 4 years ago, the word art, the dusty fake plant, and a TV that's mounted about 18 inches too high with a cord running down the wall behind it. The only thing on this list that a licensed electrician called an actual fire risk. That last one isn't about how your room looks. So here's my verdict, and it's 1 sentence. The 10 things making American homes look cheap are almost never the cheap things. They're the wrong sized, wrong lit, and wrong mounted things. And 4 of the 5 biggest fixes together run about $120. Not $120 per room, $120 total for the ones that actually move the needle. Everything else on this list is under $10 or free, and the 2 most expensive items, the blinds and the TV, you can leave alone for now without losing the plot. Let me finish the list, fast, because these 5 are cheap, and they're the ones you've genuinely stopped seeing. The TV first, since it's the safety one. Daniel Vasilevsky, an electrician, not a decorator, gave Better Homes and Gardens the number in February. The center of your screen belongs to your eye level sitting down. For a standard couch, that's about 42 inches off the floor. Installers say anything above 60 to center, and you're going to feel it in your neck. That rule traces back to the SMTE viewing standard, so it isn't somebody's preference, it's the ergonomics. Same electrician, the part that matters more. Extension cords are meant to be temporary. Running one continuously under load behind a mounted TV creates a fire hazard because they overheat. The outlet is supposed to sit behind the mount, so the wiring never shows. That one I'm not calling an aesthetic issue. That's a go look at your wall tonight issue. And I'll be straight, this is the one fix on the list that isn't cheap. Remounting means patching the old holes and sometimes moving an outlet. That's a Saturday and possibly an electrician. So tilt mount if it's over a fireplace with no other wall and deal with the cord regardless.
The other 4 are almost embarrassingly easy. A designer named Megan Cahill went after glossy plastic picture frames, specifically the ones imitating metal. And her point isn't snobbery, it's that plastic pretending to be aluminum reads worse than plastic just being plastic. Same principle killed the peel and stick tile, which she says bubbles, lifts, and peels until it announces itself as a shortcut. A Living ETC styling desk piece from May named the objects nobody sees anymore. The plastic laundry basket next to the washer, the shiny trash bin, the bright plastic utensils in the crock on the counter. Individually invisible, together they make a space read cluttered and less refined. And the fix they prescribed isn't spending more, it's swapping material. Wood, woven, ceramic, linen, brushed metal. Word art. Designer Kathleen Groover put mass-produced word pieces and chain store canvas at the top of her expired list. But read her actual objection. It's the set, bought all at once to fill a wall. Her alternative costs nothing. Frame your kids' artwork. One print you actually chose is not on this list. And the fake plants. Fariha Nasir set a quality bar, not a ban. A faux plant is fine if it's good enough to make you look twice. The tell is dust. Real leaves shed it. Plastic collects it. If you've got a north-facing apartment or a cat that eats greenery, a genuinely good faux is the right answer, and the designer said so herself. Now, the fair fight. What's the real alternative to doing any of this? Doing nothing and spending the money on furniture instead. And I want to take that seriously, because it's what most people do. $600 toward a better sofa versus $120 spread across bulbs, curtains, a rug, and a ceiling fixture. The evidence says the $120 wins, and it's not close. A $10 IKEA panel hung at the ceiling beats a $60 panel hung at the window frame. Same window, same room, one measurement apart. And a CRI 95 bulb changes how that $600 sofa renders in the first place. You cannot outspend a bad measurement, and you cannot outspend bad light. Delia said it back at the start, and everything I found since agrees. It's intention, not price.
Here's what would change my mind, and I mean this. If designers started splitting on the rug rule, if I found working pros saying front legs on doesn't matter, I'd throw that whole section out. But every source I checked, including the retailers who'd profit from selling you the smaller rug, published the same standard. That's not consensus by accident. That's consensus because it's checkable. Where I'll hedge, honestly, the 5 soft items. Frames, plastic, word art, faux plants. Each one rests on a single strong designer's opinion, well argued but not measured. I couldn't get live replacement prices on any of them either, so take those 5 as informed advice, and take the first 5 as a tape measure. If it were my $120, here's the order, and I'd do it exactly this way. Bulbs first. $26 gets 8 sockets to CRI 95 at 2700 Kelvin, and it changes every room simultaneously. Curtain second, about $30 for 3 windows, hung 2 to 4 inches below the ceiling. Rug third, 8x10s are live at Walmart starting around $30, and rollbacks were running when I checked. Fixture last at $35, and only if you own the place. But before any of that, the painter's tape. Remember the tape from the rug section? Same roll does both jobs. Tape the rug out on the floor and live with it for a day, and use the same roll to mark where your curtain rod should go, 4 to 6 inches minimum above the frame, better near the ceiling. 2 pieces of tape, $0, and you'll find out whether you need to buy anything at all. If you already own 84-inch panels, the free fix is just mounting the rod lower so they actually touch the floor. Length beats height. A short curtain hung correctly beats a long one hung wrong. Buy if you're a renter with $100. Bulbs, curtains, rug, done, and you take all 3 with you. Buy if you're selling in 6 months, because verticals, dome lights, and cool white bulbs photograph badly, and listing photos are the whole ballgame. Skip it all if you genuinely like your room. Preference is allowed, and I'm not here to talk anyone out of a fig tree they love.
If someone asks you about this, send them one sentence. It's not what you spent, it's whether you measured. Front legs on the rug, curtains to the floor, and a bulb that says 90+ on the box. That's the whole video in a text message. If that's the kind of thing you'd rather know before you spend the money instead of after, subscribe. This is what I do here. And I want one thing in the comments. Go measure your TV, floor to the center of the screen, and tell me the number. I've got a feeling about what we're all going to find.